Every material has some basic visual components that describe its surfaces. The primary visual components are right here: ambient, diffuse, and specular. Right now, ambient and diffuse are locked together, so they share the same color. I'll unlock them so that we can explore the differences between these components. Now, of these three, the diffuse component is by far the most important because it simulates direct illumination. That is, light that's coming out of a source, reflecting off of the geometry, and hitting the picture plane where we see it in the viewport. I'll change the diffuse color to bright red. So if you look at that teapot, you would immediately say that it's red. And that's because of the direct illumination that we're simulating with the diffuse component. The ambient component simulates the indirect illumination. That is, light that's not necessarily coming from a particular source. It's just in the space. It's part of the environment, if you will. I'll choose a different color for this ambient component. How about bright blue? Now, in the real world, you would never have a material that had such different colors for ambient and diffuse. But I'm doing this to really reveal where we see that component on an object. And right now, I would say that there's no blue at all on the teapot. I see it fading from bright red down to black, but I still don't see any blue. The reason for that is that by default, the ambient component is turned off. Go to the Rendering menu and open the Environment dialog, or press 8 on the keyboard. Here is where you set the global ambient level for the scene. Right now it's pure black. And this would be appropriate if you were using an advanced rendering engine like Radiosity or Mental Ray, which can accurately simulate the indirect illumination. However, the Scanline renderer, which we're using, can't do that. So it might be appropriate to boost up the ambient lighting level slightly. I recommend leaving it pretty dark, somewhere in this area. However, for this demonstration, I'm going to boost it up well beyond what I would normally do, just to illustrate to you that we're starting to see some blue on the teapot. We're seeing it in the darker areas of the teapot. I'll go back to the material editor. Notice that the sample slots appear much brighter. That's because we boosted the global ambient level. Now, another way of thinking about the ambient and diffuse components is by considering their angle of incidence. Here, where we have a high angle of incidence, where the light is coming more or less perpendicular to the surface, we're seeing the diffuse component predominate. Where the angle of incidence is very low, over here, this is where the light is just grazing the surface at a shallow angle. This is where the ambient component will predominate.